Yeah, man, I guess we just kind of kick it off. We were literally about to hit the go live button, and Grant's like, whoa, 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 whoa. And I feel like, look, this doesn't happen a lot, but there's a lot of times like I get in the studio and Grant's purposely on mute, like not having his mic, telling me he can't hear me. So like I'm thinking this is a complete like scam of whatever he's trying to do to throw us off before we get started. And he's like, Maason Smith suspended first game, which obviously feels like it's not legit, but according to Wilson Alexander of the Advocate, I think everyone's kind of running with it on Twitter. I'm trying to
Lawn confirmed.
well, then, fuck. Then I guess it's gold.
It's the Odyssey.
God. Yeah, man. I mean, that's a dagger. It's I don't know. I had
It's a
this
fucking
feeling.
hit, man. It's a hit. Like you can't. A week and a half before we play Florida State, we're gonna do an investigation on Maason Smith. No, this has been
I
going.
liked
on
whack job better. I like
It's
whack job better.
right. This is a whack job. I understand that, but we have
It's
to
an
cater
inside
to a
job.
region. Yeah.
If this were a Bama player, he'd be suspended for a quarter in week 2 when we played Grambling or Southern.
For Mountain Valley's sister, whoever it is, not the game that, quite frankly, determines your future until November. I mean, like that really defines who you are right out of the gates. Florida State's a great football team. Make no mistake about it. This is a coin flip game. Like this is a very close matchup. Florida State's improved. So is LSU. In my opinion, I feel like, I'd bet on LSU to win, but by no means am I comfortable with saying that. And you take away the main reason of that confidence, which is a return of Maason Smith in the middle, which completely changes your game plan with your personnel, and just adds so much value to LSU. Now that's ripped away from you, I'm not as confident. And this is a big hit. Like this is a big whack job. And the fact that it's now coming out, people are starting to chirp that this is from his recruitment. This goes back well beyond Brian Kelly or any of the motions that Maason Smith has had to overcome and go through. And for one, not to mention signing an NIL deal with the main, hustler of the town, Professor Gordon, which is fine. But like this type of suspension all of a sudden getting popped up. I mean, the first reaction all of us are having is, what is illegitimate benefits in 2023?
Sorry, officer. I didn't know I couldn't do that. I mean, like literally, we're in the free-for-all Wild West of college football. When was the last time you heard of someone getting suspended for an NCAA violation?
So they had to go back. They had to snip through his recruitment to LSU to find something, some benefit that he was awarded that's illegitimate. And you know what? It's not that big of a deal. We're just going to fine you one game. Just happens to be your final money bag year, a national championship contending team versus a top 5, top 10 team in Florida State to open your season. No big deal. Big fucking deal. Big fucking deal.
I will say, look, to look on the sunshine end of it, immediately the first thing that this podcast thought of when it's like, does this have to do with Gordon? If that's the case, how many other people are involved? Like, is this about to be the rolling suspensions where all of a sudden, remember that game we went to where North Carolina had like 11 dudes suspended or whatever? It's like, is that what's about to happen?
Like getting out ahead of this? Like, are we about to get fucked against Florida State just out of precaution?
And so, I mean, it's a little bit better to hear that it probably dates back to the Ed Orgeron regime. One last little tip of the cap to Edo. Hey man, I'm still just going to say thanks for the title and let's part ways. But yeah, I came into this pod. I came into this pod that I was going to have the take of like Maason Smith might be eased into this Florida State game. He's still not participating in like the scrimmages. It's like, let's not get too carried away. I think you're going to see a lot more rotation. To now, I'm like more concerned because now there's no rotation. There's rotation. It's not what we were expecting.
That's a big hit to that rotation. I mean, like that's the problem there is that you're comfortable with the backups of Jefferson and Guillory, right? You're comfortable with those two being able to spell the best defensive tackle tandem in the nation. Now you remove one of those important elements, you have a rotation of one elite defensive tackle and two guys that are supposed to be depth players. So not an ideal time for this to happen. We were already on the fence on whether Maason Smith would be a full go against Florida State. We know he'd be strapping up. We know he'd be good to go, but he has an ankle
Trayvon Diggs
sprain.
style strapping up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not for everybody. But I think Maason Smith is as vital as a piece of this defense as there is. And so this is not something to take lightly. This is a big fucking deal.
You know, I mean, I don't know. I guess it was last week we did the defensive preview. Go check that out if you happen to miss it and you're just jumping in for some Maason Smith news. But it was, you have to game plan for so many people. As soon as your game's over and you have LSU on the schedule, you got to figure out how to control Maason Smith, Harold Perkins, and then the Jack linebacker. And all of a sudden you take that away. It's like, yeah, you know, Wingo is a returning all SEC dude, like a legit player, but Maason Smith's your potential first defensive lineman drafted in the NFL type of guy. And to not have him rolling out week 1 to set the tone, even just like first guy off the bus, you want it to be a guy like Maason Smith. I think it's a big hit. I wish we would have known about this week. Could he not have served this suspension last year? You can take every game you want.
This better not be a hamburger. Like this better not be a Jim Harbaugh situation where
our boy better got hooked up.
Yeah, because if Jim got 3 games for hamburgers, Maason Smith better taken like 1 chicken finger from Cane's without paying for it. I mean, like if that's the extent that we're going to here.
Our crab legs incident is a 3-piece, which is like $10 now, so I don't really blame him.
$10 for a 3-piece?
It's been a minute since I've been to Cane's, but you know I'm on top of inflation like no other. I've got a steady eye on prices.
Well, I didn't know if you were in the mid-tier fast food game. I
just don't eat Cane's.
Mid-tier.
Old school Cane's, elite. New Cane's, it's fine. It's whatever.
Just like everything. Just an old soul in a new world.
They got corporate on us.
Song,
they got corporate on us. That in a small town.
So being outdone by Oliver Anthony's Richmond of north of Richmond. Great song.
I figured you'd like that one.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Learned it. Learned it.
Oh, did you?
Let's go here. Let me grab mine.
No, we're not doing it live. I'll do it when it's crisp. When I can hammer
bullshit pay.
Yeah, overtime hours. So anyway, Maason Smith's going to be bitching about that soon. He'll embrace that song come week 1. But
it's kind of a shitty way to start the pod. We were going to have a little hype about some scrimmages and who we think is going to break out. We're so close. Like we're under the 2-week mark. We might even be in single digits. Are we at 9 days, 10 days? Like we're there.
I think we're at 10 tomorrow.
And we're there. Like we have arrived.
I mean, the only thing that could have been worse was us finding out like next month, like Monday.
That Denver Harris is a piece of shit and he sucks. And that Aaron Anderson has not supplanted Kyron Lacey. And that, I mean, there's a few other things that could have happened. Listen, obviously we're recording this at 8:30 p.m. the night of the news. So you're going to be listening to this. Unless you're one of the handful of live listeners who get to see this live, this is what this is for. But we're going to be tracking these updates. We've got GZF baby on the P's and Q's going through that's Grant, by the way.
Yeah. This isn't necessarily like news about the case. It's just news of how Wilson is the person that broke.
Frank?
He was in on it.
So Wilson illegally paid
Wilson
Smith,
Alexander.
is that what you're putting out there?
Wilson Alexander breaking the news.
Tweet that.
Grant
Apparently his fiance is a lobbyist for Adams and Reese, and I'm assuming Adams and Reese is a law firm that represents LSU, or they represent obviously people in Louisiana. They're from New Orleans.
We got some Florida State fans in the live chat kind of checking it out. Got to say, as an FSU fan, while I'm happy Smith isn't going to be there, it's still odd it's happening so soon with little context. Yeah, I mean, I told Mike before we fired it up, I knew that fucker Mike Norvell knew something when he had that little trot and incident with the cameraman or the reporter. Like he was too. There's
He
a
had
little
it
too
up his
much.
sleeve. He had it up his sleeve.
He had this. He's been
Mr.
keep this fucker. I'm out on him now. He's not my
Me?
favorite coach
I'm
anymore.
cutting you off too
No,
much?
Norvell.
Oh,
No.
okay.
I'm out on Norvell.
Okay. Yeah, no, Mike Ward in the chat, thanks for the comment. But yeah, that's it's certainly odd timing. And we're not sitting here being serious thinking that Florida State has anything to do with this.
I don't know.
It's easy to make the assumption that this is odd, right? Like something's off here, that of all games, of all times, 10 days until kickoff, we're going to slap Maason Smith with some type of infraction from his recruitment days. It doesn't smell right. And that's what immediately led to us thinking, is this deeper? Is this an NIL deal? Is this something to do with like Gordon cooking the books and he got caught? Like, what is the deal here? And obviously, if it goes back to recruitment, that's a little bit of fresh air because there's not a lot of those players truly left on this team that are contributing.
This also shows you like how good of a king Saban is. Like Saban schedules Texas week 2 just in case somebody maybe has a gun in their car or gets caught stealing a Big Mac. We got a little ULL.
They'll step it up and play Duke every now and then.
Yeah, it's like we're gonna ease into this just in case somebody, like, you know, if we were playing Florida State week 2, we'd be like, oh great, Maason Smith's gonna have an extra week. He's gonna be ready to go. So once again, that's why I hate playing these premier games week 1.
And that's respect to Florida State. Like Florida State is a very good opponent. I don't think Florida State loves playing LSU right out of the gates with a promising season on.
They don't have that week 0 game this year, so they're very scared.
Well, I don't necessarily think they're scared. I think they're very confident in their abilities this season. And if you don't have to fucking play an SEC team right out of the gate, like let's kind of save some of these growing pains for when we have to play Clemson and we have to play, you know, Miami,
Syracuse,
or whoever, right? Like let's dominate our conference. Let's not have to play LSU. LSU, you know, on the flip side, we have to go through the gauntlet of the SEC.
Yeah.
So why add another team that is going to be pre-ranked in the top 10, returning a very hungry squad, when we can go back and forth about the scheduling component of this? It's the timing of this hammer that's being dropped on this particular player from his recruitment days. Like that's, and I don't know, I'm hoping this is not just all right, timeout. This might be a bigger deal than we think. So for anything, he can't play against Florida State because this might go on for some time. That would be bad.
Don't even put that out in the ether. So yeah, that is interesting. Go ahead, Grant.
Some people are pointing out like maybe, you know, this was actually, I don't know, but then he wouldn't have played week 1 last year. They're like, maybe this has been under investigation for a while. But like, why would we, like, is it something Brian Kelly has been knowing about, but he didn't want to show his cards and now it's just out there? You know what I mean? Like maybe, like there's no way that this just came down because some of the reports are saying that he's been cooperating. There has been an investigation into him. It's not like this just popped up. There's been an investigation and he's been cooperating and they still agreed that there should be a 1-game suspension. So it makes me wonder, like, has this been known the whole time? Brian Kelly tried to keep it under wraps. He went out and recruited some big time defensive tackles, which we needed anyway. I guess it didn't really matter. Right. I don't know. You could think about it a lot of ways. Either way, it's bullshit, but it's just the timing's weird. Everything's weird. But if it's Wilson got a tip because his fiance is, you know, working with this law firm and they're now trying to fight this. She has tits. Yeah. His fiance hopefully has tits. No,
fiance caught a tit. Yeah.
She caught a tip because she works with this law firm that could potentially be representing LSU to appeal this matter. I don't know. It's all.
I just want a fair fight. I want because this is a very good Florida State team. This is a very good, potentially very good LSU team. You know, I think last year was a great game, but there was all of these. But we fumbled. But we didn't make an extra point, but Maason Smith was out. It's like we got to do that shit all over again now. right? Like I want to be able to go nose to nose with Florida State and truly get a great game with your best 11 against our best 11. And let's see what happens. Right. And that's what's frustrating about this, is because they are a good opponent. And I want to see how good we are right out of the gate. And I'm sure they want to see truly how good they are right out of the gate as well.
The good thing about this is if things don't go our way, or maybe, you know, Florida State moves the ball a little bit more than we like, we could just be like, guys, they didn't have the game plan for Maason Smith. Like SEC,
that's the thing. It's like that's going to be hanging over our head the whole time. It's just like, well, we're going to get Maason Smith back, and we're going to be number one. It's like, well, we still don't know.
I'm going to craft some tweets over the next 2 weeks and just save them in the drafts for just moments where like a defensive line guy's out of position. Like Maason Smith would never. Like, this game doesn't count.
It seems like the consensus of people is like, what if we just played him? Like, what would are they going to vacate our season?
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
the NCAA probably would do some crazy shit like that.
Like, how funny would that be? How funny would that be?
At this point, everyone's just kind of put their finger in the SEC or the NCAA's chest and been like, we're doing whatever we want. It's like Urban Meyer's Florida. Like, we're just going to do it.
I know. It's tough, but we're about 20 minutes into this show. We have a lot to talk about when it comes to season preview, top tens, the national perspective. So if there's anything breaking about Maason Smith any further, obviously we will, cut to that.